What if the reason you're struggling in love isn't because you're broken? What if it's because you're finally waking up? See, no one talks about the moment you realize love isn't just about affection or attraction. It's not about finding the one. It's about everything that love unearths in you. The fear, the past, the ache you thought you buried. And that moment, that awakening, can feel like heartbreak all over again. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." But what if we applied that to love? Not just love as a dream, but love as a mirror. A mirror that reflects the truth of who you are, not the polished, performing you, but the one you hide. The part that panics when someone gets too close. The part that disappears just to be chosen. The part that thinks love must be earned by being less of you. This video will not give you tips. It will not give you a formula. Because if you've ever loved with your whole heart and lost yourself in the process, you already know. Healing doesn't come from steps. It comes from seeing, from finally telling the truth to yourself, from understanding that every "why did they leave me" was also "why did I abandon myself to keep them?" That every "why don't they love me" was also "why do I only feel loved when I'm needed, not when I'm known?" You're not too much. You're not too sensitive. You're not too broken. You're remembering yourself. And this remembrance, this slow, sacred unraveling of the masks you wore just to belong, is the beginning of real love. Not the kind that fills a void, but the kind that meets you in your fullness. So, stay with me. Sit with me. Let's explore the truth about love. That Jung quietly uncovered a truth that may change the way you see yourself and everyone you've ever loved. If this resonates already, you know where this is going. Take a moment to breathe. Subscribe if this space feels like somewhere you want to return to. And leave a like so we know you're here. You won't hear this story anywhere else, but you've felt it your whole life. Sometimes love doesn't come to complete you. It comes to confront you. You meet someone. They feel like home, like something you lost a long time ago and just now remembered. Your nervous system settles near them. Your laughter feels real again. And for a while, it feels like this is what you've waited for. But then, they don't text back right away. They pull away when you open up. They criticize something small, and it cuts deeper than it should. You start overthinking. You question yourself. You shrink, or you fight. You analyze every word they say. You become someone else, someone you thought you'd grown out of. But there they are again. Your old wounds, waking up like ghosts. The rejection, the abandonment, the shame of being too emotional, too needy, too intense. And suddenly, love isn't soft anymore. It's sharp, exposing. But what if that's not wrong? What if this isn't dysfunction? What if it's the unconscious rising to the surface? Just like Jung said, not to ruin you, but to be seen. You see, we don't just fall in love with people. We fall in love with patterns. We chase the emotional landscape we learned as children, not because it's safe, but because it's familiar. If love back then meant earning attention, now we overgive and call it devotion. If love meant silence, now we suppress and call it maturity. If love meant inconsistency, now we mistake anxiety for passion. The heart doesn't just remember love, it remembers survival. And so, you keep finding yourself in relationships that start with light and end in confusion. Because what you're really trying to do is rewrite the story. You're trying to master a wound by loving someone into healing it. But you can't fix what you didn't break. And you can't rewrite history with someone who's only here to reflect the past. That ache in your chest, the one that shows up when someone pulls away, that's not about them. That's your inner child whispering, "Please don't leave me again." And that whisper, that tremble, that inner panic, that's where love actually begins. Not with romance, but with recognition. Recognition of the self you've abandoned in the name of staying loved. Recognition of the parts you shoved away because they didn't fit the script. Jung understood this. He knew love wasn't about finding wholeness in another. It was about reclaiming the lost pieces of you. But first, you have to stop running. You have to stop calling chaos chemistry. You have to stop mistaking emotional hunger for soulmate connection. Because the love that will change your life will not come dressed as your trauma. It will not trigger your nervous system into survival mode. It will feel calm, boring even, peaceful. And you may want to run from it, because peace is unfamiliar. But peace is not the enemy. It's your birthright. And it waits patiently for you underneath every false belief, every unworthy feeling, every story you've told yourself about who you must become to be love. Keep breathing. We're only just beginning. You were not born doubting love. You were taught it in the spaces between what was said and what was never spoken, in the quiet tension when your emotions were too loud, in the way people pulled away when you needed too much, or how they only drew close when you were pleasing, helpful, convenient. And so you learned to split yourself, the loving part, the quiet part, the needed part. You tucked away your rage, your sadness, your messy desires, all the things you feared would make them leave. You didn't stop being yourself. You just stopped being all of yourself, because deep down you believed love means disappearing just enough to be safe. But disappearing comes at a cost, and that cost eventually shows up in every relationship you touch, in the way you overthink every message, in the way you apologize for simply expressing a need, in the way you settle for breadcrumbs and call it patience. You hold on when you should let go. You cling to potential, not reality. You pour and pour and pour, until your soul is parched, but your hands are still open, begging. And then, when it falls apart as it always does, you blame yourself. You say, I'm too sensitive, too much, I ruined it. But what if you never ruined anything? What if you were just trying to survive in a blueprint you didn't know you had? Carl Jung didn't talk about love the way most people do. He didn't see it as a fairy tale to chase. He saw it as a confrontation with the self, a sacred mirror, a container where everything you've disowned rises like smoke, impossible to ignore. And when that happens, most people run. They say, this feels wrong. This is too much. But it's not wrong. It's honest. Because the moment someone loves you, truly loves you, it doesn't just soothe you, it scares you. Not because they're unsafe, but because you finally have to face all the ways you still feel unworthy. And here's the truth no one tells you. We don't fear being unloved. We fear being fully seen and still left. So we protect ourselves. We perform. We try to be easy to love, not realizing that being easy often means being inauthentic. And that's not love, that's performance. And performance always leads to loneliness, even in relationships, especially in relationships. So if you've ever looked at someone and thought, they love me, but they don't see me, or worse, they wouldn't love me if they saw me, then you're not crazy. You're not needy. You're waking up. You're waking up to the truth that love without wholeness is starvation. And the only way out is back into yourself. Back into the parts you've buried under the rubble of who you thought you had to be. Back into the fire where the real healing waits. It's not easy, but it's where everything begins again. There's a moment quiet, almost unnoticeable, when you stop chasing them and start searching for you. It doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with exhaustion, with tears you can't explain, with staring at a message and not replying, not because you're playing games, but because you've had enough, not just of them, of abandoning yourself. It's a sacred breaking point, a spiritual rupture. The moment you stop begging for someone to choose you and start asking why you haven't chosen yourself. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the journey toward becoming whole. Not perfect, not healed, but whole. It's messy, lonely, sacred. It's the death of the mask, the death of the one who tried so hard to be lovable, they forgot to be real. And for many, that journey begins in the ruins of love. The day you realize that every relationship you've clung to was a reflection of a wound, not a want. You didn't want chaos. You were just used to it. You didn't want to be ignored. You were just taught that silence meant safety. You didn't want someone to fix. You just thought love meant becoming indispensable. When Jung said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. He wasn't being poetic. He was telling the truth that most of us spend our lives avoiding, because looking inside is terrifying. Looking inside means facing the part of you that stayed for too long, that kept forgiving what hurt, that thought, if I love them harder, maybe they'll stay. But love is not rescue. Love is not a job. Love is not something you perform to earn peace. Love is a mirror, and that mirror doesn't lie. So when someone triggers your abandonment wound, that's not punishment. That's the part of you that still believes love can't last unless you suffer for it. When they ghost you and you spiral, that's the part of you that still equates silence with self-worth. When you stay with someone who drains you, belittles you, betrays you, that's the part of you that thinks love means enduring, not expanding. But now, you're starting to see it. You're starting to wake up in the middle of the night, not just aching for them, but aching for yourself, for your voice, for your boundaries, for your truth. That ache, it's sacred. It's your soul saying, come back to me. Because the love that lasts, the one that heals, is not the one that sweeps you off your feet. It's the one that sits with your shadows and says, I see you. I'm not going anywhere. And sometimes, that voice is yours. Sometimes, the person who holds you through the darkest night isn't a lover or a friend. It's you finally, mercifully, choosing yourself. Not because you're bitter, not because you've given up, but because you're done betraying the one person who's been there all along. You. Keep breathing. We're almost there. You may not remember the first time you abandoned yourself. It probably looked innocent. You smiled when something hurt. You said, it's okay, when it wasn't. You stayed quiet so they wouldn't leave, so they wouldn't get angry, so they would still love you. And in that small moment, that subtle betrayal of truth, a belief was born. If I'm fully me, I will be too much to love. So you adjusted. You became the peacekeeper, the helper, the strong one, the funny one, the one who never needed too much, asked for too much, or broke down at the wrong time. You became what the room needed. But no one asked what you needed. And the longer you did this, the more disconnected you became, not from others, but from yourself. So when someone finally came along and saw a glimpse of the real you, you clung. Not because they were right, but because they recognized something in you that you had buried so deeply, even you forgot it was there. They saw your softness, your depth, your grief. And for a while that felt like healing. But eventually, their love could not reach the places you still refuse to hold. Because no matter how much someone loves you, they cannot love the you you're not willing to be. This is why relationships become confusing, why they start with connection and end in silence. Why you go from everything to nothing, wondering, what did I do wrong? But you didn't do anything wrong. You simply repeated the pattern. You silenced your needs. You twisted to fit their shape. You gave more than you had. You loved with your whole soul, hoping that would finally be enough to stay chosen. But here's the quiet truth. Love cannot save you from yourself. Only you can do that. And the moment you truly decide to stop abandoning yourself, everything changes. The people you attract, the ones you release, the way you speak, the way you walk away, not with bitterness, but with clarity. You stop trying to earn your place. You stop turning relationships into performances. You stop accepting love that demands your silence. And in that space, that wild, unfamiliar silence where you are no longer shrinking to be loved, you finally hear your voice. That voice is not too loud. That voice is not wrong. That voice is your soul, returning. Carl Jung believed that the shadow, the part of you you reject, is not evil. It's not something to eliminate. It's something to integrate, to bring home. And in love, your shadow is the part that says, I'm afraid to be seen. I am scared to be left. I don't believe I'm enough. But when you stop rejecting that voice, when you turn toward it, with tenderness, with presence, with truth, you don't just find healing, you find wholeness. And only from that place can love feel like freedom. Not fear, not sacrifice, not survival, but a soft landing, a gentle knowing, a mirror that no longer shames you, but welcomes you home. You're almost there. Stay close. There's something holy about the moment you no longer chase, not out of apathy, but out of awakening. You don't need them to reply anymore. You don't need closure wrapped in pretty words. You don't need to explain yourself, prove your worth, or fix what was never yours to carry, because now, you see it clear as day. You are not asking for too much. You are asking someone emotionally unavailable to meet you in a place they've never been willing to go. You are asking for depth from someone who was only ever swimming in the shallow, and that doesn't make them bad. But it doesn't make you unworthy either. It just means you've outgrown the ache of being misunderstood. And that's where real love, the kind Jung knew was possible, begins. Because now, you're not looking for someone to rescue you from your loneliness. You're no longer mistaking attention for connection. You're not confusing intensity with intimacy. You're not begging anymore. You're choosing peace over patterns, choosing truth over tension, choosing love that doesn't require self-abandonment. And when that shift happens, everything inside you softens. Even your grief changes shape. It no longer screams, it hums, it whispers, "Thank you for finally seeing me." Because the parts of you that were once rejected, the tears, the fears, the depth, the vulnerability, they were never broken. They were just waiting for you to stop walking away from them. They were waiting to belong again. You see, Jung didn't believe healing came from perfection. He believed it came from integration, from owning your light and your shadow, your strength and your ache, from realizing that you are not here to become lovable. You already are. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. Choose yourself. Choose love that mirrors your wholeness, not your wounds. And yes, that kind of love may not come fast. It may not be the next person who texts you good morning or tells you they miss you late at night. It may not be the person who makes your heart race with uncertainty, but it will be the one who sees your soul and stays. Not because you begged, not because you bent, but because you were real. You didn't hide your tears. You didn't mute your voice. You didn't audition for affection. You just showed up fully. And that is love. That is the love your inner child has been dreaming of since the day they first felt invisible. That is the love that says, you don't have to earn me. You just have to be you. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, you will sit across from someone who doesn't flinch at your depth. They won't retreat when you get real. They won't punish you for feeling. They'll breathe you in, and your whole body will exhale. Because finally, you'll feel safe, not because you molded yourself to fit them, but because you finally found someone who never asked you to. And until then, you hold your own hand. You love yourself in the ways no one else did. You speak to yourself like someone worth loving, because you are, always have been, always will be. And now you're no longer afraid to be alone, not because you don't crave connection, but because you've stopped treating solitude like punishment. You've stopped equating silence with rejection. You've stopped filling the space with distractions, texts, noise, and longing for someone who was never fully there. Now the space feels holy. Now, being with yourself feels like coming home, because for the first time, you're not sitting in loneliness. You're sitting in presence. And from here, you begin to understand something no one told you. That love is not meant to complete you. It's meant to meet you. You do not need someone to finish your story. You need someone who's doing the work to understand their own. You need someone who doesn't just say the right words, but lives them. Someone who knows the sacred weight of presence. Someone who doesn't disappear when your wounds show. Someone who doesn't make your softness feel like weakness. And before that person ever arrives, you become that for yourself. That's what Jung saw. He knew love begins not with finding someone else, but with finding the parts of yourself you abandoned for love. It's not sexy. It's not fast. It's nights where you cry over people who weren't meant to stay. It's mornings where you write yourself a new story, even when the old one whispers your name. It's choosing to say, I deserve more, even when your heart wants to settle. It's radical self-trust, and that trust doesn't come from affirmations. It comes from choosing yourself over and over again, especially when it hurts, especially when you want to go back to what's familiar, because what's familiar will beg you to return. The person who breadcrumbed you will reach out again. The one who left you guessing will say, I miss you. And your heart, your beautiful, hopeful heart, will ache to believe them. But your soul will know better, because you've seen this before. You've lived this before. And this time, you don't mistake pain for proof. You don't confuse longing for love. You don't lose yourself in the cycle. You pause, you breathe, you listen. And you say no more. Not from anger, from love. Love for the parts of you that used to settle. Love for the nights you waited by the phone. Love for the tears you dried in silence. You say no, and in doing so, you say yes to you. This is not easy, but it is holy. This is the work Jung called the inner marriage, the reunion of your fragmented self. And when you marry your truth, your worth, your voice, you stop settling for half love. You stop choosing people who cannot meet you in your wholeness. And that changes everything. You are the one you've been waiting for. And when the day comes, and it will, when someone enters your life and the connection feels different, you'll notice something strange. There's no rush, no high, no panic, just presence. It won't feel like being swept off your feet. It will feel like being placed back on them. You'll feel calm, held, not just seen but understood, and a part of you might resist it, because it doesn't feel like what love used to feel like. The anxiety, the uncertainty, the ache that followed every touch. It feels safe, and safety might feel unfamiliar at first, because you grew up thinking love meant tension. That love meant sacrifice. That love was earned only after you proved your worth. But this love doesn't need to be earned. It meets you where you are. You don't have to perform. You don't have to hide. You don't have to lose yourself to keep it. This person will sit with your truth, even when it's messy. They won't shame your shadows. They'll honor them, not because they're perfect, but because they've met their own. And when two people who've done the work meet each other, it's not fireworks. It's a slow-burning fire that never burns out. And that, Jung would say, is the goal. Not to find the other half, but to become whole and then share that wholeness. Because real love is not a solution to your loneliness. It's a celebration of your solitude, and it holds space for your fear, your joy, your wounds, your brilliance, all of it. You no longer collapse to be loved. You rise, and when they love you, it won't be because you fit into their fantasy. It will be because you dared to live in your truth. That's what makes love last. Not strategy, not charm, not pretending. Truth. Your truth is your compass now. And maybe this is the part where you realize the old you, the one who begged, who overgave, who twisted herself into someone smaller. She wasn't weak. She was just trying to survive. So don't shame her. Hold her, thank her, and let her rest now. You're home.